How are we doing, guys? And welcome to the I'll Try That podcast. This week, we are travelling to Ireland to sample a staple over there that is Guinness. But first, I'm going to hand over to Barbara, who I believe has an interesting hot topic for us.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, so gradually, after, sorry for a bit of a heavy one, after all conflict in Afghanistan, you may remember at the back end of last year, Joe Biden announced that the US is going to withdraw all its forces from Afghanistan by the 11th of September. As a result, lots of other countries involved are going to follow suit, and so Germany, in particular, are one of those countries. As a result, one thing they're finding they're also going to have to do is fly 22,500 litres of beer home from Afghanistan.
That sounds like the most German thing to be bringing home from Afghanistan ever.
Nein!
Do not leave the beer!
Was müssen wir machen? Es gibt so viel Lager.
I'm just going to throw that out there. Do they need to bring the beer back? Why can't they just leave it over there for everyone over there? Leave it as like a present or something.
I don't want to get too much into it, but I have to feel like it might be something to do with the locals being Muslim probably don't drink beer.
Yes, yeah. Essentially, so I think rather than even just leave it as a gift, the first idea is to sell it. But Joe, as you correctly say, local culture, religion, and customs mean that booze doesn't do very much for anyone out there. So they're going to send it back. 60,000 cans of beer, as the BBC has reported, are kind of sat there. And, it's not doing any good. I'm sure what I was sort of thinking was they can't sell it. They're thinking about sending it home. I'm afraid if it is going back to the UK, it might charge them a little more in the postage.
Isn't it going back to Germany?
Yeah, if it's going back to Germany, but I'm got no problems if it got rerouted back to the UK. I'm sure I'd find a home for it. I'm not sure 60,000 cans is going to is probably going to see me through for some time. But there's 22,500 litres that needs a home basically. So they're going to have to send it back to Germany.
Well, at least I'm very pleased to hear that this is not going to be beer wasted. It's not going to be lumbered on the populace. It's not going to be not reused. It's going to be sent back to Germany. It's going to find a home, as you were very openly with your own open arms, Barbara, of like bringing it back to the UK if you want to. This will find a home. You know what?
It is going to be an absolutely fantastic welcome home party if they're bringing 60,000 beers back. Like that's the alcohol budget covered.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not up to speed with how lockdown sort of restrictions are in Germany, but I imagine that there's probably going to be some domestic welcoming of a few thousand litres to add to the coffers.
This week we're going to, as Travis said, we're going to be talking about the staple that is Guinness. Now, I don't really have to describe too much about the word of what Guinness is. I think everyone, as soon as you say the word Guinness, you picture a pint glass with, the Guinness word and this very black liquid inside it. Guinness is, as we know it now on draft, is very popularized as a stout, but its original formulation came as a porter. But really, what is the difference between a stout and a porter?
Yeah, I mean, it's good news for the listeners, isn't it? Because we've just all become friends again after having a huge argument about the difference between stout and porter. so guys, good news. The podcast can continue because we've set aside our differences. And
all the listeners need to know was Joe was right. That's all they need to know.
I really don't want to throw a spanner in the works, but Joe, you said a dark liquid. Actually, Guinness is a dark ruby red.
What was that first word that you said?
I thought for a minute Drabbers was going to say, I'll have you know, Joe, that it's actually a solid. It's actually solid.
It's antimatter.
All right, I'm just going to put in the background. Stout, as I understand, and without giving too much due deference to Joe, I understand that stouts are actually stronger porters, just with a high content of alcohol. I've heard the term stout porter before, so that presumably is something that muddies the line between the two. But a stout is stronger porter, as I understand. But there's a difference in there also between the most popularised drink, which that I'm currently sampling, being Guinness Draft Stout, which I think is the really well-known one. But also they had Guinness Original, which is, I suppose where it all started, which was the porter, right?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Guinness itself, we know the stout, the draft stout as being the one and only, that's what we think of when you think of Guinness as the most popular one. But there are so many other Guinness products that are out there. They've got a Guinness 0.0, which we will talk about a little bit later, but it had to be recalled from its November 2020 launch in the UK because of biological contamination. Don't want to go too much into that detail, but basically it's been put on hold, the official launch, until they can sort that out. There's a Dublin Porter, there's a Golden Ale, there's a Hop House 13 Lager, there's a Guinness Rye Pale Ale, a West Indies Porter, which you might know as the more popular, you might know as the more popular Guinness Foreign Extra Stout, which actually, looking at the stats here is fascinating. That Guinness Foreign Extra Stout, it accounts for 45% of Guinness's sales globally and is super popular in Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Okay. That's me living in. I'm a little bit in Ireland mode, Ireland ISLAND mode, and this is the one I drank, and I had no idea that 45% get out of town.
There's a whole range of products behind the Guinness trademark, I should say. I mean, and again, I should have to say Guinness trademark or even copyright, because everything has, it's copyright. Because every time you look on the Guinness website, Guinness is written, it's got the little R above the S to say it's a copyright, and you cannot use Guinness unless you have their permission.
They put a trademark on the harp symbol as well, I think, haven't they?
I think Guinness out there is a fascinating product just because of how worldly wide it's known and how popular Guinness actually is. It blows my mind. Everywhere I've ever travelled in the world, I've always been able to get a Guinness. No matter where it is, Guinness is available.
So Guinness produces on an annual basis 82.9 million hectolitres. So that is 50.7 million barrels.
Okay.
That's mad. That's huge.
That's an unquantifiable. I mean, I know we've quantified it. We've just given some statistics behind it, but that is an unquantifiable in my mind of how popular Guinness is around the world. Now, Barbara, what is the most popular countries? And maybe you can throw that back to Travers and I.
You've tapped in, I like it, to an interesting question I was going to pose to you guys, which is, could you tell me, we'll say at the moment you'd have to be a bit of an expert to get these in the right order, but could you tell me the top 5 consumers of Guinness in terms of countries in the world?
Can I go first in this?
By all means.
I think I might have it.
Fill your boots.
Is it the top 5 countries? Is one of them Nigeria?
No comment.
What rating would you put Nigeria at in that top 5? You've got to give numbers to these.
Okay. No, Nigeria. Number 2, Cameroon.
You better not be Googling this, because I can see you looking at the screen, and that defeats the whole bloody purpose of what Barbara's trying to do right now. I can see you right now looking down at the side. That is such a cheat. You are a cheater, Richard Radwell, and I don't care who knows.
Hang on, I'm looking on the screen. He looks like he's got it written on the inside of the palm of his hand. I'm not asking. Right, Travis, you're exempt from this. Joe, what do you think of the top 5 consumers of Guinness worldwide by country?
Something tells me that Nigeria and Cameroon might be in that list.
Where did you get that from?
Okay, I have to feel like Ireland has to be in there. It's brewed in Ireland. They must consume a lot of Guinness there. This is not a Foster's story. They actually brew it in the country and they consume it in the country. I will say that but Ireland's not a very big country per capita, so I don't think it's number 1. I think the US might be number 1, actually, because they do like Guinness, and it's a huge country, so I'll put US number 1.
US number 1.
I think the UK's a close second because we do like a good Guinness here in the UK. I'll put Ireland there at number 3 because, again, they like it in their home countries. I'll put Nigeria and Cameroon to finish it off. So that's 4 or 5.
Well, well done. Between the two of you, you got the top 5. I think probably because it must have been Drabaz's numerous trips to Cameroon that he knows how much they drink over there. But yeah, 10 out of 10 in terms of the population of the top 5.
What is the order?
In at number 1, it's a non-mover. It's the UK. The UK are the highest consumers of Guinness. Second place goes to Ireland itself. Fair play, is locally produced and the locals enjoy it. Third place is Nigeria. So Nigeria is a bigger consumer of Guinness than the United States, which comes in fourth. And Cameroon takes that 5th spot as the 5th biggest consumer of Guinness. Really interestingly, I'm going to have to try and cast my mind back, and I should have maybe done some more research into this. But I think that Guinness did I think it was a Nigerian-based advert a while ago, and I remember there was this advert had these guys drinking Guinness, and it was really the whole idea is that these guys in this bar having a drink it was all about fashion. Their outfits were fantastic, which I think is a popular Nigerian custom of having the absolute height of sartorial elegance, being very well dressed in very sharp, very snazzy suits, and maybe that should have been a bit of a tip for where they came in terms of their Guinness consumption.
That was a BBDO advert for Guinness that was really tapping into a subculture called sappers. Now, sappers are, I can only describe as, put it into our language, dapper gentlemen who walk around in the most fantastic outfits, always, like suits, ties, like hats, but they're always, but it's an African take on this. So it's colourful.
So like me.
This isn't like, you're not talking about like kind of barber jackets. You're not talking about, what we might think of dapper in the UK of being, not even barber jackets, but, like tweed. It is phenomenal. So, they refer to them as a group of everyday heroes from Brazzaville, from the Republic of Congo, actually. So, follows these sappers whose, way of life is a testament to the belief of putting more in to get more out.
I think we're going to have to get some pictures up of the kind of suits that we're talking about, because I just remember them being really striking sort of 3-piece suits, but with the hat, maybe that makes them 4-piece, but really striking, strong, some primary colours, but really vibrant sort of things. And that's if I could get a wardrobe full of those suits myself, I'd be a bang up for it, particularly if it involved sinking a few Guinnesses as well.
Now, while we're on the topic of Guinness adverts, so for me, Guinness, I was introduced to Guinness not as many years before I could officially taste a Guinness.
Definitely.
And I fell in love with the brand of Guinness through their adverts and through the associations, the partnerships that Guinness did. So Guinness for me has a very strong heartland in the world of rugby. They did many partnerships with cotton traders. They sponsored many different rugby clubs. It was called the Guinness Premiership for a very long time. As a through and through Worcester fan, although that's a very painful phrase to say, we follow our rugby quite a lot down in Worcester, and Guinness is very much tied with that rugby culture.
It's still the Guinness Six Nations, I believe, as well, isn't it? Every year, the competition, again, for our American listeners, the competition between Italy, France, England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, that is still the Guinness Six Nations.
Now, I'd give the Americans credit. Rugby is one of the most popular growing sports in the US of A.
Apologies. That was me being a little patronising there, guys. Sorry about that.
I used to really enjoy the Guinness original adverts when they had like zoo animals and all of that sort of stuff. Like, you'll never get my Guinness. They had like a toucan with a Guinness balanced on top of their trunk and a zookeeper maybe running away from a lion and all this sort of stuff. But around that time, we've spoke about it before, that my great-great-grandparents and everything like that used to own pubs and stuff like that. We had it as a hot topic on the podcast. But I own An original bottle, it is tiny. So, you know, like you get the little like vodka bottles that you'd maybe get on an aeroplane or something like that.
Miniature.
It's the size of that. But I own a bottle of Guinness that was given out to pubs and breweries and stuff like that as an advertisement for them to try the Guinness and stuff like that. So I have an original bottle, unopened, that sits on my memory shelf of a bottle of Guinness that was handed down from I think it's about 4 generations, and my grandma gave it to me and said I could have it. So I've now got an original bottle of tiny Guinness, unopened sort of thing, which I will never open, and I will quite happily pass down onto somebody else in my generation. But it is I'll put a picture up on our Instagram. But yeah, it is really cool.
That's a lovely memento, lovely family gesture, that one. And such a rare thing now, by the sound of things, to have one of those mementos as well.
Yeah,
that's there's historical significance.
So to build on the toucan, you're absolutely spot on. The toucan has been a part of the Guinness brand since 1945 when it first made its appearances. There's a whole stream of different posters where you've got this toucan with 2 pint glasses of Guinness, like balanced on its nose. It's really just the origins of it is that it's just more that kind of more playful rather than logical kind of idea. There isn't really anything that links a toucan to Guinness apart from the fact that someone went, let's just put this as a memorable beer ad, and that's just how it started. But the toucan has definitely become, an integral part of the Guinness brand for a lot of ways. And there actually are, limited edition beers which are, you can see a big toucan across the pack itself.
I mean, the toucan was really iconic, but I almost, I really don't feel this way about adverts for other products, but I almost feel like the toucan, for a moment there, I forgot about it. But I feel like the toucan almost it makes you forget a little bit about some of the other advertising. I don't think there's another product where I've actually really I've seen an advert for it and thought that's so cool. And as you mentioned before, Joe, it was way before I was actually old enough to drink alcohol. Even I think my memories of Guinness is going back to sort of the age of 7 or 8. They had an advert, I'm sure, with Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Bean dancing, and I don't know if this was the same one, but they had for a while it was a really recognizable piece of music which sort of went da 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 da. I'm sorry, my singing voice is that was everywhere. Everyone knew that. And there was that. There was also the one with the guys. It was black and white, which obviously makes sense because of the booze itself, the beer itself, the liquid. And it was the guys. It was really sort of deep, kind of heavy music, and it was a ba 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 ba. And the guys go out surfing.
No, I want to talk about that. That's my jam. That's what I've been talking about. The tick follow top advert. So I'm really pleased you touched on that, Barbara, because it's like, for me, I'm glad that touched you as much as it touched me, because 1998 is when this advert came out.
What I find mad in general, I'm just doing a bit of a generalisation here, but beer companies and their advertising tends to be on point. They tend to be adverts that we remember, and they tend to hit home, sort of thing, because there's many adverts that I remember and stuff like that, but they all tend to be beer related. I don't remember some deodorant that's been advertised and stuff like that, but beer commercials I do. I just wanted to throw it out there, but Guinness, they hit it on the head a lot of the time.
Yeah, and in what I suppose is a very competitive market, they did just step it up a gear. Joe, you seem to. What was the deal there? The tick followed talk thing.
So I think what kind of, I guess, started off this whole advertising Guinness and why it's so memorable is this advert of Guinness. 1998. I was 8 years old at the time, so long before I could even touch Guinness, and taste Guinness in that sense. But I just distinctly remember this advert. So, as you said, it's about kind of like these surfers, dudes, but actually it's way deeper than that. These are Polynesian surfers. It was shot in Hawaii itself. These gentlemen are running out there on very old school surf gear. This is not like, a new school. This is like trying to think back to the harp of, the age of glory surfing, I suppose, or the early days of surfing.
Big wave.
Big wave, and that's exactly what this website, this is exactly what this advert was trying to capture, is that these guys are waiting on the beach. It starts with them panning to them on the beach, waiting on the beach, and then they run into the sea, and they're basically big wave surfers. They're waiting for the big wave to come in, and they can read the tides to come in to know when that big wave's coming. And, there's just the music in the background. You can already picture it in your mind, that kind of music, the dun, 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 this kind of music hitting in the background. It was known as the tick followed tock followed tick followed tock, because this is the voiceover that the guy's saying, because they're waiting in the waves for it to come. There's this very iconic line, of the voiceover that says, Ahab says, I don't care who you are, here's to your dream. Linking back to, the Ahab's novels, about the Moby Dick. And basically these guys just go on this massive big wave. They surf down this wave. They come off and they're celebrating on the beach. It sounds like a really small premise of an advert, but for a 60-second spot, it was so iconic. It won so many Clios, it won so many D&D awards, it won a Cannes Lion as well, which if you're winning anything in the ad industry, these are all the creme de la creme of the ads that you want, the awards that you want to be winning.
So I was just coming back to you, Joe. You were talking about how the guys were waiting to hit the perfect wave, and they were waiting to get out there and stuff like that. But as I said, as I do my little bit of research for when we come on here, it's supposedly to pour the perfect pint of Guinness. It is a 6-step art form that supposedly supposedly in between that, there's meant to be a minute break from when you pour to letting it sit and letting it settle, which I think from you, I can remember the advert you talk about, but looking back at it now, kind of reflecting on it, I can see where the advert was coming from, that they're waiting, and that you I think they probably tapped into having to wait for the perfect pint, having to wait for that perfect moment. And I think that was what was maybe, this is my interpretation of it.
You're absolutely spot on. That's exactly what it was, what it was bringing out, is the fact that you wait for the perfect pint.
Really glad you brought that up, Travis, because also I, as someone who used to pull pints of Guinness, I kind of think it was sort of received wisdom, but I always knew there was a formula for it, but I never heard from an official source what the proper way to do it was. I hope I've been doing it right this whole time, but do you have that specific set of instructions, just so we can sort of put that to bed?
If you give me 1 minute, I will take a look.
I was going to say, you can't dangle 6 steps and not give us the 6 steps.
Yeah.
So here we go. So from what I found, the proper Guinness pouring process begins with a cool, dry glass. You want to hold the glass at a 45-degree angle beneath the tap spout. Pull the handle forward and let the stout flow, filling it up until you reach 75 inches below the top of the glass. Let it settle for 119.5 seconds. Bring the glass to a 45-degree angle again. Push the handle backwards this time until the head is just poured or just proud of the glass. Don't let it overflow, and never use a spatula to level the head. That's just blasphemy.
Oh man, even if they've just been really arbitrary with that, I still love it, and that's got a level of dedication. That's what I kind of do if I have a Guinness draft stout can. And I kind of apply that even with the can. And anyway, even though I know obviously you can't do the forward tip of the tap, but I once poured. I think this was like having guests around, and I said, I have actually got some Guinness to one of the guests, and they said, oh yeah, no, I'd love one. And then I started doing that, and they said, no. When you've got a can of Guinness. This blew me away. They said, crack the can, yeah. So empty it. Well, he said put the can in upside down and then just let it go.
This is Guinness's, they've done a massive push about this throughout coronavirus, because obviously you're not drinking it out of pints at the moment. You've been drinking them out of take-home cans. And Guinness out of a can is designed that you're meant to just pour it straight into the glass itself. Like, you aren't meant to be having this, you can't have, this whole Guinness pouring experience, the 6-step process that you're experiencing from a draft, from a tap. You need to have it, the can is designed in a way with the widget. We'll talk about the widget in a second. It's designed with the widget so that you can pour it directly into directly into the can, like straight away, and it still gives you that same feeling of what you're meant to get from a pull pint.
That's interesting though, because I remember this person saying to me, so I was kind of, I'm happy to go and pour it straight in. But they said, no, upend the can into the glass, and I was like, okay. And he was like, and he said to me, and just leave it. I was like, so the top of the can is going to be submerged in the beer as it fills the glass? He went, that's the only way. And I was like, dude, I'm not sure.
Well, that doesn't make any sense from the gentleman's opinion, because you've got a can which is a pint glass, and so if you pour that in, any extra like thing that goes in that can is going to pour that liquid over the top of the pint glass. So you can't have. Yeah. So that's what basically, if you're submerging it, you're going to get spillage.
I mean, I saw Rich's eyes light up when we mentioned the widget. I think he's about to hit us with some serious knowledge.
No, this was just so we've talked about the widget before with John Smith and everything like that, but I found a really interesting fact. So the widget won an award it was the Queen's Technology Award in 1991. But there was also another massive technological marvel that was coming around that time. Can you guys guess what it might have been that the widget beat?
The internet.
No, was it? Did you say 1991? Drabbers. Sorry, that's a good suggestion, Joe. I feel like I've moved on quickly from that. 1991. Was it me?
No. It was not you, Barbara. Joe was bang on the money. It was the internet.
As if the internet was bigger than me. I can't believe it.
Yeah. But it's more I can't get that the widget beat the internet. The widget's great, don't get me wrong, but the internet's pretty cool.
Honestly, I think if you this is the problem, but this is the thing with any technological advancement. People hype it up for what they think the perceived kind of value is. And at that time, the widget was such a big deal because there was people were, it was revolutionary for so many different industries, but specifically obviously in beer and with the creation of porters and stouts, because you could basically transport and give people from cans the same experience that you'd expect from a pub. Now we know that obviously the value of the internet is exponentially more than the widget. But, at that time, people didn't really understand what the internet was. It was just made for kind of for nerds that were kind of like sending, messages to each other, whatever. But now we know what the internet actually is. Whereas at the time, the widget, it blew everyone's mind. It was like, what? I can have the same pint experience that I get from the pub, but from a can?
Every day's a school day.
The first Guinness Book of World Records was published to help settle pub arguments. They're just saying that after, apparently some sort of like unfruitful hunting trip that Hugh Beaver, who was the then managing director of Guinness, what a bloody great name, Hugh Beaver, and also ironic that he's in hunting as well.
Please tell me his middle initial was J. I totally forgot about the Guinness Book of Records comes from Guinness. Joe, carry on. Tell us about Huge Beaver.
So it goes on to say that when Beaver was unable to locate a reference book that he could claim back to his claim, he decided to create one. So Huge Beaver did actually create the book of Guinness.
That's it. This one's over.
Who created the Guinness Book of Records?
That was Hugh Beaver.
Who? Who was it? Yes. No, it was you.
Hugh Beaver?
It's cool. Back in the room. So Hugh Beaver wanted to settle an argument. Yeah. He didn't have the book. Drabbers, come on, we're better than this. We're older than this. Hugh Beaver.
So he created a book that basically he could go back and claim, that there would be a reference guide for all these wild claims that are said at pubs. And he stamped the Guinness logo over it, and handed it out to pubs for free. So that cool. Consumers could settle debates and bets that often happened over a pint.
Oh, that's good.
I have one of the original Guinness Book of Records.
Man, your collection of Guinness memorabilia, you're going to be worth so much eventually.
Yeah. Making it rain. We've smashed through. There is so much to cover with Guinness. It is just fact after fact, an interesting story. It's absolutely mad. But otherwise, we would be here for hours if we just wanted to talk about it. So I'm going to move us on to the taste because I think it's a good time to go to it. I will hold my hands up. I've never been a huge Guinness drinker. I've only ever drunk it, I will say, a handful of times in my life, and that is never been something I've actively gone and brought until this podcast sort of thing. And I've tried it again today, and I get why it's big. I get why it's so nice, and I get why it's so drinkable. Because God, it is. It's really good.
For me, it's it reminds me, as Joe mentioned earlier on, about day at the rugby, drinking beer, drinking Guinness. I quite like, you can't do it all the time, but a day at the races. I have a bit of tradition where I am. There is a big race course nearby in Cheltenham. New Year's Day, if you've got the energy to get up early morning on New Year's Day, crisp cold weather, watching the horse racing and having a Guinness is just absolutely perfect. And again, if you need a little bit of a liven, a bit of hair of the dog, I was there a couple of years ago and I was there with a Guinness, and someone said, real way to enhance it also is a measure of port in your Guinness, to have a port in Guinness, which gives a little fruity edge as well, which I really enjoyed.
So I think with Guinness, the Guinness like stout, this is the draft stout, which is so popular, but obviously, as we know, there are other versions of Guinness as well. Usually they're around that 4.1 to 4.3%, so it's as low on the ABV scale. And the idea is that Guinness is, this isn't going to be a heavy hitter. You could probably, get through a couple of Guinness, a couple of Guinea, and and not feel like you're toppling over yourself. But as the boys have just said, it's so distinct. It's that smoothness, and I think Guinness that unmistakably Guinness is the fact that you have this first velvety sip. All the way through to the last. Like it has that real, what they refer to as the lingering drop. It doesn't change as you drink the Guinness. It is the same from the very first sip all the way through to the very last. It is this dark liquid. It isn't going to be a light hoppy, if you like your craft IPAs and all this stuff, like this is not the drink for you. If you like to have a quintessential, kind of heritage, but unmistakably smooth drink, a stout, and as a porter goes, Guinness is the benchmark. You have so many great nitro. You can have a nitro IPA. You have a nitro Guinness out in the US. It's only sold in the US, and I have tried that, and it's delicious. It's really kind of like velvety, even more velvety, and it's really starting to try cater towards the American, what the American kind of like taste buds are expected, with these, kind of new, craft ales that have come out there. I really do hope that they bring these nitro Guinnesses out in the rest of the world, because they are phenomenal. But you have, Guinness Extra Cold, people might have heard of before. And basically it's normal Guinness Extra, draft stout, but it's put through a super cooler that's 4.3%. You might have seen these in pubs, in bars, where they have the taps, which have literal ice on the outside because of how cold the beer fonts are.
Yeah, I love the look of those. That only just makes me want a Guinness even more. Also, for anyone that I figure, my list of places that consume beer obviously was really well-known knowledge earlier on. But in theory, you can actually survive on a diet of just Guinness. I'm not sure that most health professionals would recommend it. And I think it's probably fair to expect that it's probably a little bit low on vitamin C. But apparently the number of calories combined with the high proportion of protein and iron in Guinness means that technically speaking, you can survive without eating or drinking anything else, but just consuming Guinness.
I like Guinness, but I don't think I want to live on Guinness.
Well, I think it's not recommended, but, desperate times, desperate measures. Maybe if you found for some reason that you were locked in a pub with no exit, no entrance, and, they, to be honest, that for a lot of people is nirvana. But if you thought you were going to be in there for days, weeks, months, best bet, pour yourself a Guinness and keep drinking the Guinness. It would sustain you because the calories are high enough. And again, it's the protein and the iron. I'm saying that you probably couldn't get yourself your hands on a spare lettuce or some oranges for a bit of vitamin C, but it could sustain you, technically speaking.
So going back to we haven't really talked too much about the origins of Guinness. Guinness has been around since 1759. where Arthur Guinness, at the age of 34, signed a lease for the St. James Gate Brewery in Dublin. So he leased this brewery for 9,000 years at an annual rent of £45. The fact that Guinness itself, the site of St. James, which is like you'd say that's like the point that you have to go to. I would love one day to go to Dublin's St. James Brewery and have the full Guinness experience for it. But may I ask you guys a question of who now owns the Guinness brand?
Ooh, I think I know this.
Ooh.
I think it's a big brewery, isn't it? Or a big brewing corporation.
Look, I'm gonna put it out there. Is it AB and Bev? Because they own absolutely everybody.
So Rich is going AB and Bev. I'm going Diageo.
It is Diageo. Matt Barber wins that round. So yeah, Diageo, one of the largest drinks companies in the world, mostly known for its, Johnny Walker. Everyone will be very familiar with Johnny Walker. They also have owned, Guinness since 1997, since the merger of, Guinness and the Grand Metropolitan, which was also another big drinks company. So, this is there's a lot of money and marketing budget behind Guinness, which you would expect with a company that sells 10 million glasses of Guinness a day around the world.
That number just is absurd.
Every day.
Like 10 million glasses a day.
3.65 billion a year. I said on a previous episode that $1 billion is a lot. This is the sort of insight you can't get elsewhere. Yeah, okay. So just looking at the numbers there. So Guinness, their Twitter, they do divide up by the country. They average about 25,000 followers per country. The interesting thing, though, they don't do Instagram, sort of officially. They don't do Instagram. However, the Guinness Book of World Records do. How many followers do you think they've got on Instagram?
So I'm just computing in my head, like I own a fair few copies of the Guinness Book of Records and all this sort of stuff. I've got a bit of insider knowledge and it's pretty popular. I'm just going to throw this out there, 4.1 million.
4.1 million, you say?
4.1 million.
Is that your final answer?
100%.
Do you want to ask the audience? Do you want to, phone a friend?
No. I'm 100% confident. 4.1 million.
Richard Drabble, 4.1 million you've said. You've got it completely right. How did you do that without getting the answer somewhere?
Well, Joe didn't tell me earlier.
Okay.
But it's fine.
Okay. Absolutely right. 4.1 million followers.
All I can really say is Guinness it's good. If you've not tried it, try it. If you're thinking about trying it, try it. All I can say is just try Guinness.
I've tried it. I am going to go and try it again.
And that's all we have time for this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe, Rich,
Barber,
and Simo,
goodbye. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram,
Twitter,
I'll try that podcast.com.
and watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now.